How's that?
Okay. Looks like it's balanced. Just don't bump the table.
No,
Go sit somewhere else.
I am.
There you go. Okay, are we ready to go?
All set.
All right, now, who saw the video that sent? Okay. Okay, the topic is Korea. A war that's actually technically still going on. So we'll do our usual thing. Let's just quickly go around the room. What did you think of the video or any other thoughts you have about Korea, which we're going to talk about now? So Larry, go this way.
I thought it covered, I've seen a few videos of Korea and I did fall asleep for a while. But I thought it was good coverage from what I recall seeing, pretty balanced. It actually leaves out a lot of political intrigue. I thought that was unfortunate, but I think it was whitewashed a little bit.
It was
It's going to be massively sellable and not great controversy, just the facts.
Yeah, well, it's very, it just talked about the war itself. Essentially.
The other things relate to the war,
Yeah, very much. Fran, what did you think?
My main reaction was how pointless war is, because it ended up divided, it's still divided, technically the war is still going on. And as you watch that video, you saw all these American soldiers, mostly white, although some were black. And you know, they're all so young, and then you see their bodies being dragged off their field. And I thought, why do we keep doing this?
Because it's our primitive brain. Yeah, you didn't see the video, but the video was all about the war, the battles and all that kind of stuff. But just your thoughts on the Korea itself.
I'll just forward your thoughts. Those were good.
Okay.
Fill in the country.
Very good. Kathy, what do you think?
I did not see the video. I'm curious about the comments.
Okay. All right. Larry.
I guess I was surprised by the strength and strong involvement of China. Now, I had read about that historically, but this one here really brought it out good, and I kind of had more sympathy for MacArthur's what he wanted to do. You at least take some stronger action against China in the whole thing, but he of course slapped down by Truman and understand why that happened.
Okay. Jack.
It was a war film. Lots of blood, lots of booms, bangs, explosions.
Yep.
I was surprised they spent so little time on the air portion of the war. I thought the air portion was a little more.
Yeah, it was not. It was the purpose was totally different than what we were talking about.
So yeah.
Okay. Tony.
I had a lot of thoughts. I was in the Vietnam War, and I had the same problem with politics. You all know. You can't get anything done because we had to get approval on everything you needed to do to win the war. And it's unfortunate that it didn't end. I think MacArthur could have ended it if he crossed it for 38 Parallel. We wouldn't be in the situation we are in today. That's my opinion.
Even with the 500,000 Chinese.
Even with the 500,000 Chinese.
Interesting.
Because I don't think they would have done anything had they, because I think they were a little concerned about the atomic bomb that we had. Okay, that was brought up in
That MacArthur wanted to use.
yes. But you know what? It's more, the threat is more important.
We've been living with that threat for 70-some years.
I know. The other thing too that is you don't hear much about the Korean soldiers, and they were pretty awesome. I think that was one of the hardest wars for them because of the weather and the volume of people that got killed. I didn't realize how many deaths, Americans, civilians,
there were
Chinese.
over 3 million casualties, but that includes wounded, missing, and killed.
That's still.
Oh, yeah.
significant.
Should we have even did enough work?
What do you think?
Yeah, I think at the beginning. Along there.
Why do we belong, why do we belong there?
Because basically to restore the balance, which was lost. And actually MacArthur got the Chinese. Yes. But with his freedom of action and the choices he made, that's how China got into the war. They came better prepared. They had ill-equipped soldiers, different question, because both conservatives and liberals, especially the conservatives in Congress, wanted to downsize spending. That's why they were popping up almost nothing. Goes on from there. I never heard evidence or assertion that supplies were constrained. Since that video went off the deep end on that point. Never seen it read that chart made, at least not with any evidence. So I'm concerned with that. But it was the right thing to do because it was North Koreans had invaded. We needed to push back. They pushed us way back. We should have pushed it back. We did not need to go to the alleyway, bring the Chinese.
Very angry to say something.
The other thing that struck me about the video and that so many other wars seem to be similar to was how they said at the beginning when it was UN forces and they seemed to be pushing the North Koreans back. And they thought it would be over in, after what they said, a week or a month. And almost every war seems to start that way. We'll invade, it'll be over, the Civil War, World War I, II, just name a war. And then it dragged on and on for 2-3 years.
It reminded me of what's going on today. Russia thought they could do this at the weekend. Didn't work. They got bogged down, and then, because of the weather and mud, with all their convoys and supply. I mean, they didn't calculate what was going to happen if the war extended because they ran out of supplies, and they were indiscriminate in where they bombed. Same thing that the Koreans were.
Any other thoughts? What are your thoughts, Madonna? We're talking about Korea. And did you see the film? The video? Okay, what are your thoughts on anything on Korea?
I like that. I like the mash.
Yeah. Okay, the MASH units, yeah. The thing about MASH, the TV. We had a Radar O'Reilly. I had a company clerk in Vietnam who looked just like Radar O'Reilly, and he acted exactly like Radar. I was the executive officer, I had to sign things all the time. I probably sent him to Australia for 2 weeks. I didn't even know. Yeah. So okay, so what did you learn from the video? Anything new? It was all about the military, the combat stuff, and not really much of the political. But what did you? Anything you learned specifically that you didn't know before? Larry, you're going to talk for the talk.
Well, I guess I had a different understanding than Larry O on when the Chinese came in. I thought they came in earlier, and not just because the United States pushed up against the river, but I have not Larry O's usually right. So
Write that down.
You can stop there.
Larry,
Don't go too far here.
yeah. Okay, well then, if the Chinese didn't come in then, why were the North Koreans so much stronger than the South Koreans that they could have been, have that communist movement all the way that brought the United States in, given that the sizes of the population, the South Korea today is about twice the population of North Korea. But we're But for some reason, the North was, really had their act together.
They're ready for war.
Yeah, so, yeah,
They had planned that based on that. but
right, right.
The South, they're just kind of moving.
Yeah,
along,
yeah.
oblivious about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the difference was in the leadership.
That was a time when every country, they wanted to get rid of their kings or things like that, ruler, because, and that's what the communism came out. And that's what all the people in Russia, Mongolia, China, everyone wanted to become a communist. And that's what happened.
Yeah, well, the whole thing swept, and Europe as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. What else, you have another comment?
I just.
Leadership.
Leadership, yes.
So tell me more about leadership.
I think the South Korean president was
Sigmund Rhee.
Syngman Rhee, yeah, I remember his name. Wasn't aggressive, didn't have the military, and was more, didn't think that North Korea would do what they were
Kind
doing.
of oblivious.
Yes.
And
I'm knowledgeable of what was going on.
why did Truman call it a police action?
It's never a war. Ukraine isn't a war.
That's true.
Since World War II and the stand-up of the United Nations, declaring war internationally is an illegal act. There's only been, in fact, there's no declaration of war in the North, it just came.
How many times in history declared war? The last war we declared was World War II.
Actually, Actually, yes, and that's the United States, but there have only been 4 or 5 occasions across the world, usually it's Southern Asia or Africa, and there's some small out of the norm country is declared war because of that fact. And there were big wars in the last one.
Well, one of the yeah.
I mean, Pakistan, and India, I don't know if either side ever actually declared war. They had all that stuff in 1971 and other times skirmishes.
But one of the reasons is because you're a member of the United Nations and it was more of a group effort. So it was the process of declaring, it's the, whatever, Article 1, whatever, the Constitution, it's in there. Congress hasn't used that power since World War II.
Don't forget that Ken's.
Ken, I forgot about Ken. Ken, comments. Can we hear you?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear, although I don't hear a lot of the audio, unfortunately. But
You're not getting any audio?
I'm getting some of the audio, but it's not clear. I guess the main comment I've got is that I was not aware until I saw this, the extent of the Chinese involvement in the war. Much like they've been a part of our talks over the past several months where they've been a prime part of everything. It seems that even then, at that point in time, they were on a collision course with us. So I found that part interesting.
Okay. So again, kind of what Ken was just mentioning too, with the kind of what you had mentioned, Larry, too, about surprise about the Chinese as far as how they entered.
Well, Ken and I were at a mutual meeting yesterday.
Oh, okay.
We talked a little bit about it.
Oh, okay, good.
On with both of us being surprised at the extent of China.
We asked the question before about should we even been in the war? What would have happened if we did go to Korea to fight?
South Korea would be some.
It would be all one Korea. And it would be dominated by the communists. I mean, by North Korea.
I don't know how.
So in some ways, you could say, is it a good thing? Because if you look at the success economically, how strong and democratically to a degree, more recently, South Korea has become, as opposed to it's a real contrast. So is that where the success lies, you think?
Well,
What we have today?
keynote more, the industrial part of Korea before the Korean War was in North Korea. It was almost entirely a rural
That's true.
civilization, South Korea, so that's what makes it even more strange. We had a way of promoting democracy as our national policy for about 40 years by supporting any tin horn that wasn't communist. Both North and South Korea had their own tin horn dictator that was brutal. That was evident over time. It was before the war. So that created a lot of false, a lot of fallout for us.
Okay, what if the United States had not intervened? I'm not sure who else wanting a democratic government could have at that point in time. And right now, given the situation with China and Taiwan, South Korea, along with Japan, are basically kind of signed up with the United States to look unfavorably upon a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. And the South Koreans, I think we found out in Vietnam, are pretty good fighters. So I'm glad we have South Korea as one of our allies.
Okay. So that did, over the long-term thing, if that one works. That war worked.
In that context, I'd say yes.
What do you think? Based on what Larry said, what were your thoughts?
It's a stalemate.
This is stalemate.
And it will remain so until the North Korean military decide that Kim Jong-un needs to be removed from power. And they can put someone else in there who might talk about reunification, because if you look at the economic developments of North and South since the Korean War, the North has all the resources, but the South has a booming economy. The North has suffered massive famine after famine after famine. The South has not. And
So you just, so that part is success. We saved part of half of Korea.
we saved half of Korea. We didn't save all of it, but we saved half of it.
All right. Okay, so this is a United Nations effort. What other countries were involved?
France, Britain, or France, Britain, United States, and 4 or 5 other countries that were part of that. Things that,
All right.
If you watch MASH, they had Turks there from Turkey. They had Italians, as well as the British and the French, because they had shows involving all of those different groups.
So you get most of your history from sitcoms, is that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay.
Gotta watch them over and over again.
Me too, I'm telling you. That show is still good comedy.
It is still good. Okay. Well, what are your thoughts about, okay, so you met, Larry, you're talking about MacArthur and his actions. And what are your thoughts about Truman firing MacArthur?
A little too late.
Too late.
You gotta understand MacArthur, just as the Brits had, who was there? Montgomery? MacArthur, of course. When you get to know more about what happened, he flew to Formosa to try to get Chiang Kai-shek involved without any coordination with Washington. I mean, that's an example.
insubordination.
Yeah, but beyond, actually. If you'd been told no, that would. But George Marshall, when MacArthur was in DC visiting Secretary of State George C. Marshall, MacArthur started saying something about his staff told him, and Marshall interrupted him and said, "You don't have a staff, you have a court." Basically alluding to the royalty nature of the entire business in Tokyo. You almost never saw anybody from Tokyo stay overnight in Korea. I don't think, did they mention General Allman at all? You already know. But basically, you know, they would come in. They would, when they were there, you ever hear of seagull management? That's when a bird flies in, struts around, squawks a lot, shits all over the place, and flies off. That's kind of that's what the Marine General is getting from Tokyo. That's about it. That was what came from MacArthur in the it's like, well, the servants that were around him, not like being in Tokyo.
You know what? MacArthur never spent one night in Korea.
My belief is he did.
He went back and forth to Tokyo every day.
And I don't know if he had a subordinate. Well, maybe he had the Army General what was, but that was interesting.
Okay. Well, here's something, I couldn't believe it, when they talked about the conditions during the winter time, where it was 40 degrees below zero, 50-mile-an-hour wind. How could anybody survive? I mean, that was incredible.
The vehicles, the batteries, everything.
Everything is dying. Yeah. Okay. So, so Truman fires MacArthur, and of course Truman, you know, everybody's mad at Truman. And I think I remember reading once there was some congressman after MacArthur made his farewell speech to Congress. They got there in a big motorcade going off, and somebody said, "This is a good example of a third world country." MacArthur. That was interesting. So the peace talks finally started in 1951. The war is basically, by this time, it's a year old. This is a pretty short war, right? By most standards. But it takes another 7 months, I think it was. And I remember as a kid watching, I think we just got a TV and watching Ike said he was going to, I remember actually him saying this, he was going to go to Korea and stop the war. This was his campaigning. But I remember that specifically. And of course, 7 months after Ike was elected, the armistice came in. And actually it was 1953, June of 1953. So we're still at that stalemate. So the war is still going on. No treaty, no nothing. A lot of casualties. So what are some other thoughts about how do you think this set the tone for how we have set our foreign policy from that day forward when it comes to military actions? Just the way we act and what we do. What do you think? You think that gave us an impetus to do what we've done at that point? What do you think?
I think it's something precedent. We go in, we say we're going in to accomplish a certain goal, and then for some reason, we stay. And the war is never. Police actions.
There's no ending to it.
Yeah, there's just no ending to it.
I remember when they got rid of the draft in '73. I remember somebody at the Pentagon had said, "This is great. Now we can go anywhere we want, stay as long as we want." Professional.
Yeah.
Not good. Ken, any thoughts?
My thoughts are that unfortunately, I'm not able to get a good deal of, hear a great deal of what's going on. And so therefore, I don't think I'm able to make much of an intelligent comment on things.
Okay. Sorry about that. You can't hear most of us.
Should I move that around?
It's not gonna make any difference. I don't think.
Oh, it would.
And then we'll speak.
The first time we did,
Yeah.
when you started using that, you carried it around, so the voice.
Well, you can do that. That's a good point. That's
Aye.
just like a microphone, just get it around like a microphone. Is it? Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
You would hear.
Okay, so anybody who's talking. Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Ken, say something.
Okay.
Hey, Ken. One
Hey,
camera.
guys.
Just speak up a little longer.
Okay, so what we were talking about with Janet, so it set a precedent.
Set a precedent.
First of all, we're coming out of World War II, where we're like very victorious, and we come out of World War II, essentially, we're unscathed. We own the world.
We are
Economically,
the only nation involved in that war that was not bombed, was not
Pearl Harbor.
invaded, did not have massive destruction of our property. the Korean War began in 50.
50, June.
51. We were at the top of the heap. And Europe was still reeling from
That's-
World War II.
Right.
But we were getting involved, or we had already started the Cold War with Russia. And that Cold War, and this is the first of the Rim Wars. And what we did was we did not directly fight. The major powers did not directly fight each other.
Surrogates, yeah.
They fought along the rim between areas that favored one side or the other. And there was Korea, there was Vietnam, there was Afghanistan in the 80s. You could even look at Ukraine right now as another rim war. A major power goes in to help a group of people overcome something they don't like, and you end up in a quagmire.
And then many times have we picked we sided with the wrong group?
Sometimes, yeah.
What, any instances you could think of?
I'm going to say Vietnam.
Okay.
There was supposed to be an election.
Mhm.
We're the ones that did not allow an election to occur. Because we knew we would lose.
Okay.
And we ended up losing anyway. I'm sorry, for those of you who were in Vietnam and you think you won the war,
No.
okay, that's fine.
Even when I
I'm
was there,
not going to get into that fight with you, okay?
Bad war.
I had to be very careful when I was teaching Vietnam that I did not, oh yeah, girl came in, her dad was in the military. We did not lose that war. So I had to be very careful. So I have just expressed my opinion. I think we lost the war, okay? If you want to believe the opposite, feel free, go right ahead. I'm not going to fight with you over it.
We lost the war.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, now you're telling me. Okay.
But yeah,
All right, Larry.
Just a comment, I don't think that after World War II, Korea was the first incident of getting involved into a situation. Look at what we had to do with the Berlin airlift and everything. And also we were operating philosophically under the domino theory,
Right.
so.
Exactly.
And I think the Korea situation would have supported those who supported the domino
That was
theory.
that was say, see, here's what happened. So we go into Vietnam with that thing too,
Exactly. And
which is
Yeah,
agree.
not a good theory, as we know.
I went to special warfare school before I went to Vietnam. And that's what they taught us.
Yeah.
They gave us the policies of why it was important to stop North
Yeah.
Vietnam. And they had us brainwashed too.
was that Fort Bragg?
Yes,
Okay, I bet John F. Kennedy Center,
that was
whatever.
about over 50 years ago. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Probably, that's where the Army trained the foreign area officers.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, other places too.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so other thoughts? Ken, what do you think?
I don't, you know, you can change the names of the countries, you can change the names of the people, but war is still gonna break out. I don't think we're gonna, I mean, we're kind of at war with ourselves right now.
60% of historians think we're going for a next civil war.
Okay, yeah, that's,
Scary.
so I don't know, maybe it's just our, maybe it's an inevitable aspect of human nature.
It's very much part of human nature. We think we're so advanced, but yet we're also very, very primitive.
Yeah, I know, and it's gone from fighting over who's closest to the river to all the stuff that we fight over now. Variation on that theme.
Okay.
But I do think one thing that's different is what you were just saying about the domino theory. In the 50s and still in the 70s, there was that great fear of communism. And even in the documentary, it kept talking about the Reds.
Yeah, right.
And of course, I kept thinking, they're in Cincinnati. What are they talking about?
Well, that's where they're getting beat now.
But there was that overwhelming fear. We can't let the communist way of life and ideology spread too far. They're a real danger to us and democracy.
Which I thought even as a kid, that was the most stupid logic in the world, because we are so much of an individualistic country, and we are so established that, like, we're gonna go ahead and say, let's go communist. Like, come on, these people are stupid. Everybody needs a boogeyman. That's it. And it's like, anyway, crap. So, all right, what else? Kathy, any thoughts?
Oh, most thoughts, when you mentioned the domino theory, just the lives that were lost, you know, our generation, so many
Sure.
people, we think about the men going towards women now. It's just a sad frame of mind to think of this power, you know, whatever power we think is not right, then we want to find.
Push at it, yeah. Maybe else with that, any other thoughts?
In North Korea had become a Kim dynasty. The father, grandfather, and now the grandson, they're all ruling the country. So there is no democracy or things like that. Public, you know, preparation to change the things, what's going on. They're putting everything on the sky and, you know, a lot of things going on. And it's very painful for the people who want to learn something about what's going on in that part of the country. We can't get there.
Mhm.
If you go there, you get put in jail, something like that.
Mhm.
So there is no, what do you call that, people to people kind of reaction, people to people understand. If you want to go to South Korea, you go to China, not China, North Korea, South Korea, and Vietnam, things like that. We have easy access, but we can't get to North Korea just like it is. Very difficult to go to Russia nowadays also.
Right, yeah. Okay, so any other thoughts? Larry?
Another thought, if you watch why we go to war or we don't, what have you, it's stuff like we've talked about, the fear of the other, organized other. If you look today, I said, basically, we would support any country that wasn't communist, even if it was worse to its own people, the enemy. You know, that comparison never came up. If they weren't communists, they were going to get our support. Now, today, a corollary there is human rights. To what extent do we make human rights really important? We get there and then we don't. You know, I heard somebody say something that what we're doing with sanctions with Russia, we should be doing with Myanmar about now. I don't know what we do, but that's a different, it's a different parameter, different play, because it's not open war. It's just a ignoring human rights standards that we would consider important, so it's not so important.
But we don't care about Myanmar. We only care about Russia,
Ukraine, actually.
Ukraine, and yeah.
Yes, I understand.
And, well, Russia too, because the sanctions, right?
Yeah, that's where the sanctions go. Yeah, you're right. And so I think that's an interesting parallel. I'm sure all parallels break down a basis for comparing. I think.
So it's very complex. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Let's do final thoughts. Ken, what do you think? Ken, go.
Well, I think at the close of World War II, as was mentioned earlier, when we were at the apex of our power and we supposedly held the high moral ground and, we got involved in, we supposedly got involved, because we were doing the right thing for the free world. And now, as was pointed out also, we are at a point now where we are, a lot of people think we're approaching a civil war. So I think that we need to concentrate on cleaning up our own backyard first at this point, rather than trying to, impose our will on other places that aren't likely to be willing to accept our advice anymore. We can't very well preach to the Russians and the Chinese about human rights abuses when they can point the finger right back at us.
And yeah, and they've been doing that since World War II, actually, so the end of the war. And during the whole Cold War, they've been saying, you guys aren't so perfect either because of that's one of the reasons we ended up with the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
A good example is what we do with Israel against the Palestinians. I mean, that's
Still
horrible.
screwed. Okay, so anybody else, any other final comments?
I think it was interesting that the Korea conflict involved a UN decision to enter into it. And I think if we look at the UN charter and so forth, you could get make a lot of rationale and analysis for entry. Do you all know why it passed through the UN? Why didn't the Soviets veto it?
They were boycotting the UN.
Right, they were boycotting the UN and Lambo. We passed that thing through, and it's really interesting when you go over to South Korea today and go to the military base in Seoul, and you see this UN military building with the sign on it and so forth. But that was
Good point. Okay, have we exhausted this, Mary Ann?
Another thing the documentary brought out, I was young when the Korean War happened. I hardly knew what was going on. But they talked about the air power, our air power. And I think especially towards the end of the war, we were dropping bombs all over the place. And I had never realized that had that much of an impact in Korea.
And that also the Korean War was where we phased in the jets.
That's right.
And they,
86.
and what I always knew about China was they had so many people and so many soldiers that the front two lines had weapons. The others picked up the weapons from the dead bodies. And they would actually overrun the friendly forces because of the people.
And China's still in the same position today. Based on population. Or even more so.
There was one incident in the movie where it talked about, I think it was early in the war. And the UN intelligence had estimated there were something like 50,000 Chinese troops massed there somewhere. And they said eventually they realized there were 200,000
200,000.
others behind them.
Yeah,
Whoops.
yeah. It's like their
I think
intelligence.
there's some more than 4,500,000.
Yeah,
That's the book says.
yeah,
4,500,000 Chinese and Mongolian and things like that.
Yeah.
They're fighting that.
just the numbers. Yeah. So, okay. Any other comments?
It was interesting documentary. I was in a mall. I had my iPhone, and we were in not Marion, but Muncie, Indiana. We went for Shakespeare Monday night and Tuesday night performances, and so I watched the documentary, and I couldn't stop. It was like 88 minutes or 90 minutes. It was really interesting because I didn't realize so much was put into that war, and we lost that many lives. I didn't realize. Yeah.
Okay. Now, anybody else have any final comments?
On this subject, now, Tony asked me. to bring up some things.
But
You remember that?
yeah,
Okay, you want me?
yeah, go ahead. No, you,
Oh,
It's over. It's not related to the Korean War.
No.
No.
You mentioned.
go ahead.
Okay, this has got two basic parts to it, and it starts with something that's adrift, perhaps far afield from what we normally would do in this session with the great decisions, and this was an add-on. I've come to acquire a video called Boys in Red Hats. Anybody know about that? It's basically a documentary that was put together by an independent producer, director, who was actually went to school at Covington Catholic. And this relates to the incident in Washington, DC.
I remember that. I remember a couple years ago, yes.
Yeah, you saw it. It was
No,
probably,
I meant the news story, the kid from Covington.
Yeah.
And the red, yeah.
well, I have the video. It
Oh,
was in
yeah.
theaters until just a few weeks ago. And I've looked at it once. So this kind of presents in 88 minutes or whatever it is, kind of presents multiple points of view about all this. And there are some people they never did get to talk to, like Sandman. His parents wouldn't let him talk, although he was on TV. Bunch of different things. I learned some things that maybe have some different perspectives, et cetera. But just on the side here, would that be of interest something to think about for this group to do? But it gets back to a more generic issue. We have somewhere, somebody's got 4 or 5 of my videos in Korea. I'll get them back.
We have it. We have.
We have them.
Mandan
Bring them
has.
back in.
Yeah, well, I thought I had put in my satchel here, the Boys in Red Hats video on a disc, DVD. But it's probably on the kitchen counter now, I think. I was gonna share it, pass it around. So Tony wanted to make it possible that we could watch without having to spend time during our discussion group. That's why we had the videos for all the great decisions, 20 minutes each. Now, when you move into something like this, where you get an hour and a half, doesn't leave much for discussion. So how do you handle it? This relates to copyright issues. Stuff you can pull down, that you have permission from having bought access, like Great Decisions, or things that are on YouTube, like the Korean video we saw, are clear and clean. But if you've got a copyrighted DVD, it's still okay to use it in a group for educational purposes. I believe the law is clean on that. But
You can usually, technically, from a copyright standpoint, you watch 5 or 10 minutes of it.
how many
Technically,
times can
copyright.
you do that? No,
Well, that's, you know,
Well, anyway,
Oops.
so how do you go about it? So Tony asked me this about 2 weeks ago. How do you handle that? And I gave him some suggestions. And this morning he suggested I bring up to the group some ideas. One of which is you could watch a whole hour and a half video that you couldn't share online in here, and then a week or 2 later come back and discuss it, which might be kind of what we did with this Korean YouTube video. Or maybe, let's see, maybe some other things. Maybe extend the period to 2 or 2.5 hours instead of an hour and a half, if that's possible. Or maybe somebody could preview just segments that we could use in a shorter amount of time than an hour and a half. Just skip through it 5 or 10 minutes at a time, maybe 3 or 4 times, something like that. You know, or another thing might be, we could start with our impressions of what we heard in the past when this was in the news. How many years ago was that already? 3, 4, I don't know. And then start the video and then come back a week and a half later, week or 2 later, finish the video, and then discuss what our impressions are now and how it changed our minds. So those are ideas. So the first question is Boys in Red Hats even in the scope of what people here would be interested in seeing? And what are the mechanics to make it more achievable without trying to share over email or what have you, things we can't do because they're copyrighted?
Any thoughts?
Any thoughts? Tim and I were talking about that before we got involved.
I'm looking at you, this email you had sent, and Tony said, and it says, number 1, view the 90-minute DVD in 1 GD 90-minute session.
Great
Of course, that's a
discussion.
great decision. I thought it was one goddamn 90 minutes. I think,
We could put it on fast forward.
yeah, there you go. I think, you know, I'm thinking about UD, when we have our class, they're 2-hour segments, which I think they go pretty good. So I'm thinking, one of your things you had mentioned is two hours or so, even
If you get-
2:15 or whatever. I mean, that would, I know, what do you think about, in other words, you can see the video because it would be fresh as opposed to doing it 1 week and then coming back. And I think if everybody gets together just to watch a video and leave, there's no connection there. I think you need to talk about it right away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think the UD model would really work well when we have video.
And we've done that before. I mean, that's how we start off with the great, we watch the video and then we talk about it. I mean, they were shorter videos.
They were like 28 to 30
Yeah,
minutes.
but you can still go a little bit, if that would make sense. But you think? Probably had nothing but time, right? Maybe a little bit less, but I mean, there's. Okay, that's a good thought. The other thought, anybody else, any other comments on that? That's it. Yeah,
Mary Ann, what do you think?
I think the topic would be interesting.
yeah, that would go Red Hat thing. I think.
Is there any limit on how long we can be in the room?
No, we have this from 9:30 to 12, but I could probably ask for a longer time.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna be-
The only thing is on Fridays at 1 o'clock, I have an art class
Oh,
in Miamisburg.
Okay.
I'm a budding new artist.
So we could start earlier.
Yeah,
Well, they don't open here until 9:30. So that, and if you're gonna get set up, it takes, depending on the speed of the internet and everything.
all right, so you'd have to get out of here by about noon, you think? Is that your?
Yeah,
So you got 9:30 to noon, that's 2.5 hours. That would cover pretty much everything. Does that make sense?
and if we kept, we kept,
Get bored with the tape, we'll just fast forward.
well, what we could do, if you have what you can put together, if you've seen the Red Hats, what we could skip through, you know, like I'd send you I share with you the topics that we had, and I put, you start here on the video.
Is this where, it's hard, I guess you can display the time. Can't remember. I know you can on some,
Well, how many minutes is it?
about an hour.
Oh, that's no problem. That hour and a half, we could watch the whole thing.
I would prefer to watch the whole thing, because they're different. people.
Yeah, and discussion for
Hard
an
for me
hour
to add
it
it
works.
And then I have a documentary that's really good too. It's called Disturbing the Peace. Has anybody seen that?
Yeah, I've never done that.
That's,
That's in Israel, Palestine.
yeah,
I think you loaned it, somebody lost it, I wanted the second copy.
yeah. Well, I mean, we can, those are,
Tom's Kitchen.
you know, there are a number of different documentaries that we could search for that we can share online versus a DVD too. Because the DVD is hard to, like I try to copy those, then when I copy them and I try to play them back, you get all kind of garbage on the screen because of the copyright. They protect them. Like with, like the one Korean Chosen. I thought I had it made, and then when I started watching it, it was like, yeah.
Okay, one other thought, Tony, I had, is maybe in the summer here, going through the summer, we meet once a month instead of every 2 weeks, or is that what you're thinking, Tony? Or
Yeah,
what do you think about that?
That sounds like a good
Is that be
idea.
all right?
and we do, the next one, we bring the red hats in,
Yeah.
and then we watch the whole video,
We could have time
and then we have a half hour or so to discuss it.
Probably an hour, actually. If you actually start earlier at 9:30.
Right.
It'll take a little time set up, whenever you're ready to shoot, go.
Yeah.
And we'll probably have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Everybody, Ken, what do you think of that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
Okay, so you'll send out an email to that effect, I guess.
yeah, I'll
And
take
now
care of it.
what about the dates? We're talking about next month. Okay, what's today?
Today's the 24th.
So we're talking.
Hold on, let me see. I have to, I have-
Here, I got calendar.
like the third. Let's see.
So if you look at July, wait a minute, you're looking at Fridays, is that right?
Yeah,
So you look at, say, like July 22nd,
hold on. Ken, you might see nothing. Hold on,
Okay.
July 22nd,
hold on, let me see.
Friday.
Because I'm gonna be gone one day in July, one weekend in July. Okay, hold on. Can you see anything, Ken?
I see nothing.
All right, that's okay. Let's see. The 22nd would work. July 22nd.
9:30 here.
Can we get in at 9:30?
We said
Yeah,
open.
it's open. They open up at 9:30. Then it'll take about 15 minutes or 20 minutes to set everything up.
And then we can watch it, and then we can discuss it.
Okay?
Take notes during the video. All right,
I'll set it up from 9:30 to 1. Because if I have to leave,
yeah,
okay?
that's fine. Okay,
How about catering?
Or I'll set it up from 9:30 to 12:30. 12:30. That way
okay,
it'll be open for somebody else.
okay.
All right.
All right. Now, the other thing, other topics we go along here, we finished with the Great Decisions book last time. And I subscribe to Foreign Affairs magazine, which has stuff, comes out 6 times a year, but every week I get articles that are really up to date. Same kind of this, international stuff as Great Decisions. So I could select some of those and send you some PDFs or something, you could decide.
I could share it with everybody.
All right.
And
So
also,
we get to,
depending on the topic, we might be able to download some from Google, check and see if there are any videos
yeah,
that
that's
could-
true too.
right,
could do
we
that.
could
That's-
use.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. So,
and share before we
Okay.
come in.
so we're gonna see everybody at the
A month from now, yeah.
22nd, 9:30.
Okay, Great. Anybody else want to say anything? Ken, good to see you and Kathy
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't make it there in
People are
person this time.
Getting married or having babies or graduating. So we go.
All right,
Or excuse.
okay, everybody all set?
Yep.
Good, we're done early. Ken, take care, thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Sorry I couldn't make it there in person.
All right, that's all right.